Okay, all right, then we will get going. Thank you so much, and welcome to week 2 of So You Want to Write a Novel. And today we're going to be focusing on mostly finding your voice, characterization, and the fear. But as I said last week, first a disclaimer: I don't have any qualifications in creative writing, and I don't have a degree in English. But as I said, I learnt on the job, and I can tell you the things that I learnt as I go. And I mightn't understand some of the terminology that you use, but I think I get a sense of, what you're asking at the same time. Now, hello Helen, 5 short questions before we get into the stuff about finding your voice. Somebody said, do you need to be qualified as a writer in order to write a novel? Indeed you do not. I don't have any qualifications, and they still let me write novels. I think probably the world has changed. There probably was a time when, there are still gatekeepers, I suppose, in publishing, but I don't think it's anything like as rigid as it used to be. So no, you don't need any qualifications to write novels. Okay, now this broke my heart. A couple of people asked, how much does it cost to get published? And I actually know somebody who paid a lot of money to people who told her that they would publish her book, but they were vanity publishing people. If anybody ever asks you, hi Roshan, if anyone ever asks you for money in order to publish you, run away. Publishers are meant to give you money. It mightn't be much, and we'll come to that probably in the 4th week. But no, if somebody is looking for money from you, they are not legitimate. There will probably be 50 books in your print run, and they won't actually be on sale in shops. So that's no good. And don't give them a penny. A lot of people asked about what should your daily word count be. Jenny Colgan and myself disagree fundamentally on this. Every day Jenny Colgan writes 2,500 words, and Jenny Colgan is a wonderful writer, and she's an incredibly prolific one. I have no idea how many words I write in a day, and that suits me because I would find the idea of a word count incredibly. It would make me really tense, and I'd be writing any old shite just to get to the 2,000 words or whatever. I would rather come in on any particular morning and maybe look at what I'd written the previous day, and I can end a day with fewer words than when I started the day. And I know that will make an awful lot of people really nervous, but it works for me. You are writing your novel your way. If you find a daily word count useful, then absolutely do it, and try and hit it, even if some of it is padding, because if you need that structure, do it. But if you're somebody like me who finds something like that very, very daunting, don't do it yourself. You can do it for a certain number of hours a day if you want, or you can do it until you have fixed a scene that is problematic and that you can fix, so you're going to stick with it until it clicks, until it becomes okay. So it's a personal choice, and there are no rules. Again, people wanted to know how many words should there be in a chapter. Lads, I haven't a notion. A chapter for me, again, is you have a particular scene, a confrontation, you have a meeting, you have some piece of information about your characters that you want to get across, and that's as long as the chapter needs to be. The one thing that I have noticed and that people have said a lot is that books that have a lot of small, short chapters in them are easier to read. You read them faster. So if that's what you want, absolutely do that. Now, something that seems to kind of cause a lot of anxiety is the difference between showing and telling. Now, when I started writing, I had no idea that you were meant to tell. No, You were meant to show and not tell. Now, to tell would be like this. This is a tell sentence. Marian was a very irritable person. I have told my reader that. But if I'm showing it, we'd say, Marian slammed into the house and stomped around the kitchen. For the love of God, she declared, what is today dithery fecks on the road day? I was stuck behind like 8,000 dithery feck drivers. Her phone began to ring and she looked at it. Ah, for God's sake, no, I'm not talking to you. Who was it? Her convenient best friend asked. Oh, just some fool telling me I've won the lottery, but I'm not in the humour. That's showing. You see, we are demonstrating there that Marian is really, really narky. But you know, you can't show everything. You know, we'll be here all night otherwise. So somebody said that they were paralysed, that their writing is paralysed because they can't get the different, you know, they want to convey information and they're terrified of accidentally telling rather than showing. These are just tools for you. And like, I mix and match. I mean, there are very few rules, I think, in writing that you can't break. You know, nothing terrible is going to happen. You know, the show tell police are not going to show up at your doorstep and tell you that you've committed an offence. Sorry, weak pun. Yeah, so like, don't stress. You know, write what you want to write in the way you want to write it, and stuff can be fiddled with afterwards. Now, I am going to move on to the fear. Right, I mean, it's something that paralyses and torments all creative people. And I'm going to qualify that in a moment. Right, a lot of people said to me that they'd written from the writing prompts during the week and that they had been pleased enough with what they'd written at the time. And then they came back and they looked at them later or the following day or whatever and they thought, oh my God, this is absolutely awful. I am mortified. How could I have been so foolish as to think that this was any good? Now, that sort of dichotomy, is that the word? Yeah, that you think it's okay one day and that you think it's absolute rubbish. That sort of bipolar almost attitude to one's work as a writer, it seems to be really pervasive. I mean, there are days when I finish and I think, you know, and I feel quietly pleased with what I've done that day. And then I come back the next morning and I am horrified. Like, I'm aghast at what I've written. So, and then, you know, I'll do a little bit of work on it and then think, Jesus, actually, it's not that bad. I think it's hard to be objective consistently about your own work. And I don't take any judgment as final, if you get me. Now, another thing that people said was, you know, that they loved the idea of, you know, of writing, but that they were really kind of disappointed in how weak their first efforts were. And I'm going to tell you what my beautiful friend Sarah Moore Fitzgerald says about this. She says that when a baby is born, everybody comes along and it is such a wonderful time and everybody is looking at it in the cot and going, oh my God, she's so beautiful. And nobody comes along and says, but what does she do? I mean, she's just lying there. She's not entertaining me. Like, she can't get up and walk. Like, she can do nothing. She can't change the channel on the telly. She's useless. You know, throw her away. And we take that attitude to our first attempts at writing. Like, we're so cruel to ourselves and to what we've created. But like, it's a first crappy attempt, you know, and things don't appear perfect. Things only become perfect when you work at it. And it comes back to what I said last week. And like, you're going to hate me for this because nobody wants to hear that writing is work. You know, and I've watched people, you know, they'd say like, but how do you do it and how does it get good? And I say, well, you just sit with it and you rewrite it and you go back and you think about your characters, you think about people you know, and you fiddle around with traits, like it's hard work. And they go, oh yeah, is it hard work? Okay, grand. And I can see them and they're thinking, yeah, grand, keep your secret. Yeah, don't bother. Yeah, keep your secret from poor little me. Yeah, you published authors, and like nobody wants to do the work. And I don't blame them. I don't want to do the work. But like I said last week, if you come back and if you do the work and if you rewrite it and if you take out things that you really don't like and if you bring in and if you think about it, your work will go deeper and suddenly you're creating characters that you actually are delighted with or that you believe in or that you think, yes, that person actually convinces me. And the pride in that is incredible. And I think a lot of people find that like, if it's not great immediately, that the fault is what they're writing or the fault is in them. And actually the fault is in neither. It's just that you need to put the graft in. And I wanted to come back to like the fear of starting, and kind of facing a blank page because, when you're writing, you're essentially creating something from nothing. And that's very daunting. But you're not actually creating something from nothing. It's just that you don't have anything concrete to work with. But what you have is, lived experience. You have your life's experience. Like you have so much detail in your subconscious that like you're not aware of because it's your subconscious, and it's a question of accessing it. So you have much more you have more tools and material than you know about. You see, and I was thinking, I would hate to be a salesman. I am no good at like playing hardball or convincing people to do things that they don't want to do. And if I was a salesman, I would vomit before I went to work every morning. Or if I was a school teacher, oh my God, it would be horrific. They would mock me. Like they'd be smoking in the back of the class and laughing at me. And they'd have, and they'd, I don't know, throw snowballs at me with stones in the middle of them. It would be awful. Like, I am really glad I'm not a teacher. And I'm glad I'm not a salesman. And I'm a writer. And yes, I have the fear. But do you get me? Everything that's worthwhile in life is potentially daunting. And, people were asking, like, how do you get past the fear? You don't. I haven't. And I actually think it's a good thing. I said this last week as well. It is uncomfortable. And it happens a lot, I get this feeling, it's like there's suddenly a block of ice in my stomach when I realise, this character is wrong. This character has gone awry, I've lost them. I don't like them anymore and I don't believe them. That happens a lot. But what it is information. It's telling me something's wrong here, and you need to look at it, like you need to go back in and look at what you've done and find a way to fix it. So the fear is not there just to punish us. I mean, it is frightening, but it is also there to persuade us to work harder, if that's any help. Now, hold on. Yes, but all jobs are hard. I'm just looking at my notes here, right? You have to coexist with the fear. It never goes. It can be useful. I've said all this. Right. Okay. Right. Now, people have asked about the difference between run-of-the-mill fear and the actually, should I junk this fear? Now, I don't think anybody should junk what they've written until they've actually put a lot of work, time and thought and fiddling into what they've written. Like, I often feel like that writing a novel, it's like having a relationship. And you know, like at the start of the relationship, like they're perfect, you're perfect, it's all perfect. Nothing has ever been this perfect ever. It's lovely, 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 lovely. He is finally the one, you are his one. Everything is going to be heart-shaped and delicious forever. And then he does something like, he suddenly shows up in a really weird t-shirt, or he's late, and this is the third time he's late, and you've suddenly realised, oh my God, I'm a really punctual person, you know, because I have respect for other people. This person has no respect for me or my time, he must go. You see, but if you live life like that, you're never going to kind of sustain a relationship. I'm speaking for myself, you know, because if we junk a person at the first sign of imperfection, everybody's going to get junked because everyone is imperfect. And it's the same with the book. Like if you think, you know, you're going along and it's lovely, 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 and then suddenly it's very hard and suddenly there's nowhere to go with it. That's when you do the work. That's, you know, in a relationship, that's where you start talking. It's where you start compromising. And it's the same in your book, you know. You have to think more about your characters, about your plot, about what you're trying to say. So I wouldn't walk away, you know, if you've done 7 chapters or, you know, 30,000 words or whatever, and you're suddenly finding that it's not working for you. Don't give it a chance, you know, at least fiddle with it. You know, introduce a character, a new one, change somebody, make them more fun, you know, whatever. But you fiddle around, you know, before you give up on it. Writing a book is like a relationship. Right, very good. So the fear. Yeah, we have to, I'm only messing when I say this, but like we do have to coexist with it. You know, we could learn to dance with it. I have no idea what people mean when they say like about dancing with the fear, but the fear is a constant, and a fear can actually be useful. And it's about, I don't know, doing it anyway. Feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Yeah, and one thing that I do is I light a candle every morning when I sit down to write. And I'm not in any way religious, but it feels like I'm enlisting the help of, you know, and I'm not a magical thinker, and I'm not in any way feathery strokery, you know, spiritual at all. But it feels nice to think that it's not just me who's doing it, that something or somebody in the universe is helping. And like they're not, but I don't know, it eases my fear. And another thing that I do is I ask myself to write for an hour a day. And usually at the end of the hour, I'm able to keep going. So they might be helpful if you have the fear very bad, you know, or maybe you could find your own way of kind of, I don't know, holding your own hand as you go into something that you find daunting but ultimately rewarding. You know, there is nothing wrong with being kind to yourself or being compassionate to yourself when you're afraid. So be nice to yourself. Now, I have more things somewhere. I've lost one of my things, but that's all right. Now, I'm going to come to finding your voice. Now, again, when I started writing, I had no idea what a writing voice was, and it's only, I don't know, it took a long while, you know, because I just decided to write as I spoke. You know, so my first book, Watermelon, is, you know, it's chatty, it's conversation, like it's talking directly to the reader. It goes off on tangents. It's, you know, it's very anecdotal, and that can be very irritating for a lot of readers. And that's grand, but enough readers liked it that I thought, oh, grand, this is my voice. But then, like, look at, say, Anne Tyler. Like, Anne Tyler she's got such a lovely, light, comic, delicious, you know, her voice is very distinctive. Or who wrote My Name is Lucy Barton? Elizabeth Strout. Like, hers are so, like, spare prose, you know, that just means, you know, short sentences where she doesn't overuse words. But they're quite poetic, like that every word she uses. Like Tessa Hadley is another one, where like every word is a gem. Like, and it is sort of like, it's like condensed emotion in each sentence. Like, and like they write short books, but so much is conveyed. Like they are masters of the spare prose voice. Or like, who would be another one? Like Raymond Carver, like his short stories, they're very, okay, they're not poetic, but they're very, you know, there's no wastage in every one of their sentences. And then look at somebody like P.G. Wodehouse, where it's really quite embellished, you know, and like he uses a lot of polysyllabic words, and you know, and he plays around with adjectives and adverbs, and like he has an awful lot of fun with language. Like that's his voice. So you need to find the voice that you feel happiest writing this particular book in. And people seem worried that like if they write a book in one voice, that should be their voice for every single book. Like absolutely not. Like it's something that kind of, yeah, somebody said Rachel Joyce is amazing too. Yeah. And somebody just asked, do you write your books in the same voice style? Sorry, here's himself with questions.
Questions about voice. I don't know if that's what you.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah. Bear with me. Yeah. So yeah, your voice can be entirely different from book to book, like depending on who you're writing about. And like obviously, if you're moving from first person to third person, it's obviously going to change. Now, I wondered how you recover your voice if you've lost it. Was it not the right voice to begin with, or does it need more burrowing down with it? I don't know, I'm sorry, how to answer that one. I mean, if you feel the voice is gone, try, I mean, if you've tried and you can't get it back, I suppose try another one. How do I find my voice and not just replicate styles I've read? Okay, I think at the start, everybody kind of writes like somebody they admire. I think it's very hard not to. And I think it's only as you get, it takes me a while. You know, I know that like most of my books are first person, and there are an awful lot of them are, you know, they're women and they're telling their stuff. But to me, they're not identical, and it takes a while. I'd be a good way into the book before I'd realise, okay, she's telling too many asides and by the ways, and I don't like it. It's annoying me, and I'm going to take them all out now. You know that she's going to be slightly less chatty than maybe some of my other. So no, your voice does not jump out like, you know, fully there. Like, you only find out what it is by getting a good way into a book with it and finding the parts of it that you like and the parts of it that you don't like. Like somebody said that they'd written part of a book and that the voice had suddenly started to annoy them. And I've been there, like absolutely, where I felt, you know, this is slightly, it feels a bit, what, you know, phoning it in, that's the word I'm looking for. You know, it feels too, it doesn't feel entirely authentic. And then I have to go back and find, okay, I need her to be a little bit darker, a little bit grittier, you know, and to take out maybe the puns, the wry observations, tone it all down. Or in other cases, it's tone it all up. You know, thinking, Jesus, this one is no crack at all. She's a bit grim. Yeah, you know, with something I'm writing at the moment, like I found, you know, a particular character, yeah, she's a bit dour, she's a bit heavy going, and that's not what I want. That's not the person she actually is. She's lighter than that. So you tinker. Like, I swear by a good tinker with your work. And this is a thing that I do for myself. I spend time with it, not write, but to read over what I've written and to kind of step back from it now and again and go, yeah, does that work, or do I like that? I mean, any of you who have written anything, there would be a point in your writing when you suddenly stumble across something that maybe you don't remember writing. You think, Jesus, that's not bad. And it's all worth it for that. Like, it like, the work is worth it. And I hope that's, I'm sorry, I'm trying to read some of your questions as they go flying past. We can change a character. Yes, you can change a character. Of course you can. Like, you can change your character until the book goes to the printers. Like, you're not stuck with them. Like, I'm going to come to characterization in a moment, but like, you're stuck with nothing until it goes to the printers. I swear by a good tinker. When you rewrite, is it the whole chapter or just sentences, paragraphs? It can be both. I mean, I tinker an awful lot with paragraphs and sentences just to get the balance right and stuff. But like, honest to God, like with grown-ups, the book was meant to be going to the printers on a Tuesday, and I suddenly got the fear really bad on the Monday afternoon, and I had to track down my editor, God love her, who was somewhere in the wilds of Norfolk, and like, I wanted to change the ending, and she had to talk me down from a ledge, and I was saying, but no, Louise, seriously, listen to me, I'm really afraid that it's blah blah, and if we did blah 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 blah, and she was freaking out as well, because like, nobody can tell us if it's right or wrong, and like, so she had to make the decision, to say, like, shut up and cop on, and we're going, well, I mean, she's far nicer than that, but like, but that's how uncertain things can be, and somebody asked me last week, like, how do you know when a book is finished? Like, the point is, like, you don't know, like, you have to decide, like, nobody comes in, like in overalls and says, right, drop the flag, right, that's it, it's done, you're out of time, put down your pen. Like, you have to decide, and sometimes it's very, very hard, especially if it's a big book and you're stressed by it. Now, let me see, voices. Right. Yeah, how does the writer's voice change or not change depending on the genre and or the age of the character? Yeah, when you're, even when you're writing third person, the interiority of the characters is different. Like in grown-ups, like Nell is 30. So her interior voice is not the same as Jessie's, because Jessie is 50 and they live very different lives. And, it's about like the slang for a start is entirely different for both of them. And like Nell, the 30-year-old, uses a lot of incomplete sentences. And how I got that was, like, I follow a lot of young women on Twitter, and like, I love how they communicate. Like, I love, the way they structure sentences. Like, the rhythm of their sentences are really quite different to what somebody of my age would use. And it's being a magpie. Like, it's keeping an eye out for stuff and going, okay, I love what she's done there. And it's not how I speak, but I hear, or like my niece Emma, who's 20, and Luca, who's 19, like, how they speak is very different to how I do. And so pay attention to stuff like that. And then Jessie is not the same kind of person as I am. Like, she's a businesswoman, she's a pragmatist, she's a very effective person. And there isn't, she doesn't kind of go off on mad skites. Her sentences are fairly, thank you whoever said Nell was one of their favourite characters ever. Mine too, I adored her. yeah, so finding the different voices for the different people are something that, like, all you have to do is pay a bit of attention to the world around us. You know, the information is there. And it's just a question of being consistent. Like, that's another thing. Somebody just asked it there, like, you know, if you have a particular voice at the start of the book, does it have to remain consistent? By the end, but like by the time it's finished, it does. You know, you may have to do like a couple of passes through it just to make sure that, like, you know, the same slang is used, you know, the same sentence rhythm, and the oh, somebody said how extraordinary 2,400 of us are here. Thank you so much. Yeah, so like consistency, but like there's an awful lot of work afterwards to tidy up the stuff. Do you get me? Like, you shouldn't really be wrecking your head at this stage. You should be having the crack, you know, and enjoying your time. Now, Lola Daly as well. She was another one I loved. Thank you very much. Somebody says, is it really important to describe everything in minute detail? Not at all. No, again, if you're describing everything in minute detail, we'd be there all night. And somebody says, how do you know whether you have enough descriptions of things like scenes, hair, clothing, accent, skin colour, etc.? That's entirely up to you. You know, there are some books that are so stripped back that you're given almost nothing to go on. And they work. You know, it's simply a question of what you're comfortable and happy writing. And then so long as it's consistent. But there isn't kind of a guidebook that says, you know, I need 8 descriptions of a person's clothes in the first 4 pages. Like, there's nothing like that. It's entirely what's comfortable for you. And somebody asked, you know, should you give a lot of detail at the start of a book? No, don't. Like, at the start of a book, you know, if you're writing for a reader, and eventually you will be, you don't want to overwhelm them with stuff. Like, it needs to be sort of broad brushstrokes at the beginning. You know, this is a person, this is their situation, this is kind of the sort of person they are, but like, you needn't worry about that, you know, we'll be getting down into the detail later, you know. And people also ask, like, how many characters, should you introduce a load of characters at once? Absolutely not, except I did it with grown-ups, and like, I was bricking it because the prologue was vital to setting up the rest of the novel. But I was introducing, like, I don't know, 15 people at once, and I really worried about it. And that's why we put in the family tree, to try and keep things so that people could refer. But in general, no. Introduce a person, set them up, let the reader know who they are. You know, and all you need is like 3 or 4 defining features. And then you can introduce somebody else. You know, but do it in small increments rather than, here's 7 people all at once, and yes, you will have to figure out how to cope with them. Now I am going, thank you, whoever said the family tree was superb, thank you very much. Should all books have a prologue? Absolutely not. No, like, I only put a prologue in that book because of the weird structure of the book, in that, like, the most important part of the book was that dinner party, and it was obviously to intrigue readers. Yes, it was a cheap trick, my friends. You know, it was to let you know that, like, something heavy and big goes down at this party with all of these people, but you're not going to find out for 6 months. You see, if I had just started the book you know, on Kerry, chapter 1, you might have thought, oh yeah, this is a big family, yeah, it's nice, yeah, you know. But like, why do I care? But like, people love rows, well, I do anyway. Like, one of my favourite, it's awful, one of my favourite things is, like, you know, if you're like walking along in the street and there are 2 people having a big shouting match in a closed car, and you pass along and you're thinking, I wonder what they're talking about. And yeah, people love other people's rows. You know, I am not proud of myself. I'm really not. But that is who I am. I am a flawed person. Yeah, so people love other people's rows. And so the book opened with like, you know, lots of rows. So a prologue was necessary there. But like, not at all. You know, most people manage to introduce the drama fairly early on without any prologue. Do you start with the prologue in some books, and how do you start? Yeah, like I said, it was necessary there. But it isn't always necessary. Sometimes you can just straight in chapter 1, you know, something can happen, you know, fairly early on, and you're up and running. Now, we've done finding your voice. Now, right, characterization. Bear with me one momento. Yes. Right. Characterization. The urge is always there, especially with our first book, to kind of use all our own characteristics. All our nice ones anyway. And all the, maybe all the wrongs that have been done to us. You know, hello, I speak for myself. However, lots of things to bear in mind. There are a billion different kinds of people in the world. Like more, as we know, there's like 7 billion of us already on the planet. And like, we are all unique. And like, we have shared characteristics, obviously. But like, every single one of us has some sort of secret. And it can be small, it usually is, small and really not important. But for every single one of us, I can tell you that we have at least one thing that we are like genuinely ashamed of, you know, that causes us real discomfort. And we have something about ourselves that, again, we mightn't kind of talk a lot about it, but like, we have something that we're proud of about ourselves. And we have memories of, you know, times in our life when like we felt really, really happy. You know, when we recovered from something, you know, when we realised we'd come through something awful and we suddenly thought, oh my God, I'm here, I'm past it, I survived that. You know, and it's different for everybody. We've all had terrible shocks, like where our life is just blown up in our face, and we feel like we're the only person that's ever happened to, and like we're not. But to us, we've never experienced that before, so you know, it might as well not have happened to anybody else. So like, we all have powerful experiences that we carry around in ourselves, and you will have yours, but your characters also deserve them. Do you get me? So like, people have asked, you know, do you have to do an entire pen picture of every single character, you know, before you write something? And you absolutely don't. And when I start a book, I know very little really about, you know, and it's usually a woman. Like, my main character is usually a woman. And I think the thing that kind of interests me the most is her age, you know, because I think at the moment, age for me sort of, it already sort of defines like a lot of what's going to go on in her life. You know, like if she is, you know, if she's 47, she's menopausal, and like that has a big impact on women. Or like if she is 30, as Nell is, you know, she has entirely different worries. You know, she's worried about, you know, not ever owning her own home, or like she's worried about like would she ever get like a, you know, a secure job. You know, people's concerns are different at different ages. But other than that, I kind of know very, very little, and I only get to know them as I write them. And you know, it's very easy to go for the cliches straight out of the gates. You know, like, say we're going to write about, like, you know, a 45-year-old woman, you know, and like, forgive me, you know, but like, if you were being lazy about it, you would go 45, okay, Zumba classes, wine o'clock, worries about her stomach and the size of it. Her husband is a bit of a fool, and and that's so not on. Do you know? Like 45-year-old women are wise and kind, and like if they have, if they have children, they are taking care of people, and I think it's really important to get away from the cliches very, very fast, and to find out, when was there a time in that woman's life when she was really quite bold, where like, because everybody, no matter how good they are, everybody is a tiny bit evil, and you need to find that little chip, because it's delicious when you find it. So like, Zumba Mum, tell me about the time she decided she was going to shoplift something, tell me about that time when she did it just to feel something, or tell me about who she fantasizes with, about when she's having sex with her fool of a husband. Maybe she fantasizes about her husband. Like, why is it so unlikely that people fancy their husbands? Subvert the cliche is what I'm telling you. Like, go deeper, care about them, respect your characters enough to kind of flesh them out in a respectful way. And when I say respectful, I mean by giving them agency and power in their own head, if you get me. And also, like, everyone knows that they are different from everybody else. Do you know what I mean? And it's important to tap into that. I don't know, make them a whole person, somebody says. Yeah, and like a whole person is flawed. And there is so much kind of energy put into kind of writing likeable heroines. And I mean, there's been a big move away from that in recent years, because, like, why do women have to be always likeable? I would find that hard. Like, I like my characters to have some bad bits, but I'm not brave enough to actually to write. Well, I don't know. Maybe Helen Walsh, But at the moment, like the character I'm writing, like, I care about her, and I mean, she is far, far from perfect, and kind of that becomes. Somebody said Villanelle. Yeah. I couldn't write Villanelle. No, I'm too much of a sap. I'm obviously far too kind of needy for being liked. And I would love, I'd love to have the courage to just, write someone who just didn't care. So it's entirely up to you. Oh yeah. And then people asked like about how do you write convincing baddies? Now let me tell you, as I get older, I realise that unless a person like is a card-carrying psychopath, or like, a fully fledged narcissist, or that most baddies aren't entirely bad. People. Yeah, funny. I was going to come back to. I want to mention Liz Nugent. I'm going to come back to Liz Nugent and Voice. But right, yeah. Baddies. Most people aren't terrible. They're not entirely terrible, or they don't think they're terrible, or they don't mean to be terrible. Like people can be thoughtless, or they can feel hard done by, and that they're entitled to kind of be unpleasant to other people because they got passed over for things. I think most people who do bad things can rationalise it. Or also, when people do bad things, we're only getting one side of the story. Do you know what I mean? So like, when you're in their head and you want to write a convincing baddie, if it's not going to be the type, if it's not an actual psychopath, if you're just writing a bad person, is there a reason they're bad? Or is it just that like him and the other person See the way I said it was him? Isn't that awful? Maybe that she and the other person just had very different expectations of a situation. You know, go into the complexity of it. Yes, there is good in everybody. You never met a baddie, that's for sure. I mean, I've met people who are like selfish or clueless or immature or that thing of like, I deserve, you know, I should get. But, you know, rather than have a baddie who's nice to his cat, that's too obvious. Like, something a little bit more subtle. Do you know? Like, maybe this person has guilt, or maybe a person feels uncomfortable. They feel uncomfortable about it, but they do it anyway. You know what I mean? Because that's what most people are like. You know, say if somebody ghosts somebody, you know, I'm sure they feel a bit shit about it, but the convenience of it like overrides any kind of discomfort. So yeah, nuance, balance, and you know, it's not going to come straight away. Like, creating a character is like getting dressed to go out for a night. And I mean, Jesus, none of us can even remember, because like, it's so long since that happened. But you try something on and you think, okay, yeah, it's like that, yeah. You know, and then you put on some jewellery and think, oh Jesus, no, that's a bit much. So you take one off and they go, okay, different shoes. So like, with creating characters, you give them one thing. It works. Lovely, we'll stick with that. You know, you put something else on. Suddenly, neither of them work. You know, you take away the first thing. You know, so like, you fiddle around. Well, this is how I do it. You know, I know other people may have like, you know, like a really detailed pen picture, you know, before they ever start. I would find that kind of difficult, because I don't know who they are until I see them up and running. And that gives me information. And it's a weird kind of a one, because, you know, I'm writing about a person that I don't fully know. And I've put them in a situation and I'm not really sure how they're going to work, how they're going to behave. But they behave in a way, and it's information. It's either that is how they behave, in which case, excellent, I know a bit more about them, or that's not how they behave, I'm going to have to delete the fecker, but it still gives me information. And like, that is slow. Do I handwrite my books? Oh God, I don't know. My poor paws. No, I use the thing. I have to do the speaking thing soon, because my poor hands. Okay, when I fiddle around, do I write scenarios with your characters? Yeah. Yeah. Like, you know, show them getting up to go to work in the morning. You know, do they shove their way to the front of the bus queue? You know, do they let the pregnant woman sit down on the Lewis? You know, or do they sit there, you know, not caring? Baddie. Yeah, it's all information. Please bear with me till I just do a quick scan till I make sure. Right, Liz Nugent, yeah. Right, we're talking about voice. Like, the voice in Unravelling Oliver, like, the voice in that is incredibly distinctive, you know, and it's a confrontational voice. Like, he is a terrible, terrible man. But do you see what I mean? It works fantastically. That is an example of like fabulous, confident use of voice. Okay, somebody says, how do I choose when I have several characters, plots and ideas running around my head? I've started so many times and got stuck at around 50,000 words and move on to another. Oh, what you do is you have to make a decision. Again, people hate me. I am so sorry. But there is no magic formula. There is nothing that's going to kind of jump out and say, hello, I'm the book you should be writing. You know, you were patient for long enough and now here I am. You know, you find out what book you're supposed to be writing by sticking with it and pushing through if you can. And if you have pushed through and you really feel it's still not working, try and step back and say, if I had paid money and I was reading this as a reader, would I think this was worth, my $12.99? Or would I think, in fairness, can I take it back? But only do that like after you've put the work in, then let it go, but don't just throw it away immediately. Now, a thing that kind of people ask again and again and again, do you put real people in books? Should you put real people in books? I mean, you shouldn't. Not a whole person, no, because it's mean. But if you're writing for yourself and it's helpful to you, do it. I mean, the thing about it is, made up people are far easier to work with than real people. Real people are inconvenient. Do it if you want, and usually at some stage, the character that you based on a real person will become somebody different anyway. I think what is preferential is for you to take bits and pieces from all the people you meet, and you will have things inside you like that you won't know where it came from, because there's so much in everybody's subconscious, it's just a question of getting in there, and kind of assembling all kinds of characteristics to finally make a person. And people have also said about putting real people in the book because how would you cope with in case the people read it and saw it, if there is ever a chance that they might read it, please change it, but the thing is, people will often see themselves in books. It's happened to me, with Last Chance Saloon, there was a horrible character, Larkin, and somebody told my next door neighbour's daughter-in-law that it was based on him. Why would anyone? I mean, I'd never met the man, and why would he say, I am that terrible human being, I'm Larkin, so you're not going to be able to stop people seeing themselves or other people seeing people in it, because we never see ourselves as the rest of the world sees us, because we have access to all the stuff inside ourselves. So we might be reading something and thinking, oh Jesus Christ, this is me, people see other people differently to how I would see them or you would see them. So you have to don't be mean and don't put the real person in, and let it go if other people decide that the characters you have created are actually real, because people are entitled to think what they think, and I mean, you can't stop that. So there we are. That's week 2. Now I'm going to do new challenges for you this week, and it's going to be on characterization. It's going to be slightly different. It's going to be quite different. Again, have fun. Don't overthink it. Don't edit yourself. Have fun. This is about getting in touch with your subconscious. It's about enjoying yourself. It's about seeing what's in there. It's about, this work you are producing is the baby. It's the beautiful baby at the moment, and it will grow up and become different. But go easy on yourselves and enjoy it, because life is hard enough. And and I really hope you do. And thank you so much for coming back this week. And we will see you next week I'm going to do dialogue, editing, and other things, but that I don't know yet, but I'll have a think. And send your questions, whatever you would like me to talk about next week, I will do it. Thank you so much. You are angels, the lot of you. Adios. Thank you.